I try to be patient with Jeremy because he has a lot of ideas from his place where he's sitting and not moving so much. He has a lot of ideas lately about how things should be being run. And so I try to be patient, but sometimes, Hashem, forgive me, I lose my patience. And that happened yesterday. And I felt very bad about it. And I kind of chewed his head off because he was, you know, whatever, and nothing to be too proud of. And then I went to bed feeling terrible that I yelled at a person who's like barely had just woken up and he's already getting yelled at by his wife. So I felt really bad about that, and I was really trying to work on myself because I apologized to him, and he of course was like, "Well, you're under so much stress, of course," and he was really nice about it, but I didn't feel at peace. And in the morning, I was davening, I was praying to Hashem about it, and I said, I'm really sorry. And I accepted upon myself whatever should come. I said, I know that I was in the wrong. And so I am ready for whatever I deserve, Hashem. Now, word to the wise, if you say that, make sure you have good car insurance because, because no sooner did I walk out the door and get into my car, I managed to blow the mirror right off the side of my car by crashing into Jeremy's car. So, now I felt, on the one hand, surprised at the sight of my flying mirror. On the other hand, I said, thank you, Hashem. I see that you're watching me closely, because no sooner had I accepted upon myself willingness to take responsibility and get whatever's coming my way, I felt very tended to by Hashem. He's keeping me on the right path. And so I just said, thank you, Hashem, as my mirror was sort of like dangling in the wind and I'm trying to drive to my work and trying not to crash because I don't have a mirror. And I just said, thank you, Hashem. Well played. I accept that. Really tried to keep a good attitude. And then I called our local car mechanic, and he says, listen, it's going to be really expensive to fix, but it's probably covered by your insurance. So you call your insurance agent. So I get off the phone, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to call the insurance agent. I call the insurance agent. She's like, that's weird. I thought it was in there, but it looks like you don't have that covered. And I was like, okay, Hashem, I see where this is going. I accept that. Well done. I'm accepting this. And I just tried to keep a grateful heart in that situation. And I drove to the car mechanic, and then I'm getting ready for like the big bill. And then I'm just saying, okay, thank you, Hashem. I have no complaints, totally deserved. And then the guy's like, oh, you know what? He called over like some worker. He's like, wait, we have another way to fix that. And they somehow put it back together and reassembled it. And then I went into the office. I took out my credit card to pay. And they said, oh, that little bit of work, that's free. You just go on your way. So I didn't know if I didn't know if to be even more happier to say, okay, I better watch out for what's coming next, because that didn't really go poorly enough. But why am I telling you all of this? Besides for to laugh with me at my foibles, which is fun. I was studying this coming week's Parsha that we have, because this Parsha of Bechukotai that we're coming on is really the last verse says, and that is the summary of what God told us at Sinai, meaning now we're coming after that. Next week, we're going to go into the stories that happened in the desert, and then we're going to have everything resummarized in the book of Deuteronomy and Devarim. But right now, we're coming on the end of God's message to us at Mount Sinai. So this is it's like the culmination, and it's a really, really important portion, because it's telling us here we're getting to like the point. And what is really the point? I think it's very interesting when we read the portion. Something that really struck me this week in reading this coming week's portion is that when you read the blessings are beautiful. The Torah portion divides into two parts. One is, if you follow the laws of the Torah, these are going to be your blessings. And if you don't follow the laws of the Torah, these are going to be your curses. But if you count the verses, they don't exactly divide evenly. What are the blessings? The blessings are that you're going to have food, you're going to be fruitful and multiply, and you're going to have peace, and God is going to walk with you. That's amazing, right? But the curses start out, and they're sort of the mirror opposite of that, right? If you don't listen to me, you're not going to have food, and you're not going to have rain, and you're not going to have peace. And then it just goes worse. It just gets worse. Because here's the thing about good and bad, there's sort of a cap to how good things can be, right? Like things can be really good, but it's not infinitely good. Things can just be really good. Like your life can be going well. Like if you're not sick, you're happy with your family, and you have a good job and a relationship with God. There's pretty much no end to how bad things can go. Things can go infinitely wrong. It's a really powerful and kind of scary message at Sinai, which is that you need to be very careful, because when things are good, they're going to be good. But if things are horrible, you don't know how bad that can get. And it causes us, it's not, we talk here a lot about loving Hashem, which is so important, but having fear of heaven and knowing what a narrow bridge we're on when we follow the path. There's kind of one way of doing things right and a million ways that you can make things go really wrong. But when I was reading it, what I found that was so interesting in the curses is that the curses are not, as they get worse and worse, they're not really about the original sins anymore. There are certain curses that are going to come on us if we don't follow the Torah. We're not going to have food. We're not going to have water. We're not going to have plants. We're not going to have, right? We're not going to have peace. But then Hashem says to us, if you walk with me, and the Hebrew word is in keri, meaning in happenstance, it's translated as, if you walk with me in happenstance, then 7 more curses are going to come upon you. And then if you walk with me in happenstance, 7 more curses are going to come upon you. And it keeps going on like this. And what does it mean to walk in happenstance? To me, it doesn't sound like we're even talking about the original mistake anymore. At some point, walking in happenstance means to perceive that which is happening to you as just being a coincidence. I think what the portion is teaching us is that the secret to avoiding those curses is when the curse first starts, when Hashem is correcting us because we've made a small mistake and something goes slightly wrong. You can say, that was a mistake. I was tired. I knocked my mirror off. I slipped off a horse. Whatever. It was just a coincidence. It doesn't really matter. That's when the curses get out of control, because the first curses, they're like, okay, it's going to be a rough time. But the secret that the Torah is giving us at Sinai is to say, when those things go wrong, because they will go wrong, you have 2 ways of looking at them. You can either say, well, that was a coincidence, and then watch out. Or you can say, thank you, Hashem, for correcting me. And I think that, right now, there are people who are obviously suffering tremendously more than us, but we've been through, what for us was sort of a little kind of smack, sort of knocked out of our normal path of life. And Jeremy's been struggling with, physical things. And I've been struggling with seeing him struggling with those physical things and keeping everything together. It's been a struggle for us. And even just this day of having, an accident with my car, these struggles, I think that the secret that our Torah portion is giving us is that the immediate response has to be, thank you, Hashem, for correcting me. I'm going to try to understand what you're telling me. Because if it's not that, then there's almost no limit to how things can go. And that's what the Torah is teaching us. Have you guys ever been in like a fight with your spouse or with a family member, with a friend, and you're fighting about something, but the fight gets so heated that at some point you don't even remember what the original fight was about. And now you're fighting about what you just said in the fight, because the fight got so heated that who cares who took out the garbage or not? Now it's because you mentioned my mom and you told me that I was acting like my sister. Now we're already fighting about a whole different subject. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you ever had that kind of fight where the fight is so bad that it's actually worse than the original thing? That's what I feel like in this Torah portion. Hashem is saying there's sins that we do and we can get punished. But what's even worse than doing those sins is not seeing Hashem's hand in our life when he's correcting us and trying to bring us onto the right path. And we say, coincidence. We're going to walk with God in happenstance. Everything that happens to me is happenstance. And that's when now it's already not about what we did wrong originally. Now it's something relational. Now it's not a mistake. It's not that we forgot to keep kosher enough or keep Shabbat enough. Now it's that we forgot the essence of our relationship with Hashem, where Hashem is our Father and he corrects us and he keeps us on the straight and narrow path through involvement directly in our life. And so sort of that for me has been where my life and Jeremy, my life here in Jeremy's event and in my own personal life has been meeting with the Torah portion. And I found that to be a powerful lesson as we're sort of finishing up the Sinai experience, and Hashem sends us off from Sinai to live our spiritual lives inspired by that revelation, and kind of giving us a one last bit of guidance on our path.